in HTML? Hopefully you were. Let's quickly just do it. So, yeah, who said that? I like that. Yeah, nice. I love the enthusiasm. Yeah, so we're just going to make a new HTML5. And in our body, we're going to add a form. I'm going to get rid of the action for now. And we've been avoiding form for a while, kind of, right? Can anybody tell me why?
You don't like form?
No, I like form, but Deja?
We have been trying to use that and pull information and use it for other things. And just are pretty much just printing whatever input we have.
Sorta. All right, well, we'll think about that. So label, I'm going to say is for name, because we said it needs to take in your name and email. So I'm just going to put name. And then for here, I'm going to give it our input. Type should be text. It also has a value property that we've seen. Whoops. Thanks. And it's been an empty string, right? We'll see a little bit more about that. Remember to close your input tag. And I need to give this an ID of name because that's what I said the label is going to be looking for. So I'm going to say ID equals name. Please notice that, Celine mentioned this on Slack, but notice how I don't put spaces between the equals and what I'm assigning to. You should have those for JavaScript. You should not have those for HTML. And so I'm just going to duplicate that, but for email this time. Email. And it says we should have a submit button. So I'm going to also make that an input just because we've been seeing a lot of it as a button. Actually, type, really, I want it to be submit. Value, I will say submit form. Okay, let's make sure that we're able to see this form. So I'm going to open it. It's really tiny. I'll make it a little bit bigger for us. And I am able to write stuff in here. But when I hit enter, what's going to happen? Nothing? Oh, something happened. It refreshed the page. Does anybody remember why? Isaiah? Yeah, default functionality for form submissions is it does something called a post request. We don't know what that is yet, and that's okay. Just be aware that that's something that happens. And because we're not handling it, it just refreshes the page. Okay? So ideally we would have different behavior. And so let's go ahead and connect this to our JavaScript file. So this warm-up might have felt there wasn't really a challenge here. But that's okay. I didn't really want us to have a warm-up. I just wanted us to hit the ground running. And we just kind of need to have this all ready to do that. So let's go ahead and add a script tag. So we're going to say script source, and I'm going to put a direction to my relative path for my JS file. I'm going to save it. And I'm also going to go now to my index.js. And what's the first thing I'm going to write? That's right. Danielle says we're going to write a console log to make sure it's connected. Bless you. But don't do it again. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Sneeze all you want. I love to sneeze. I sneezed 30 times yesterday. Okay. I think I'm allergic to something. Okay. So we have hello. It's connected. We should be good to go. Okay, so today we're going to learn about events, which is super, super exciting. Now we've already learned a lot of we've already started using events because we kind of just kind of went for it earlier. But these are things you're going to be using all the time. Not necessarily in this syntax, but you'll use it all the time. Yes. The question was if I'm recording, and the answer was yes. But you should be paying attention. No, what do you mean it wasn't you? Oh, he messaged you.
Yes.
Hello, Nelver, from home. Okay. Hello, welcome. JavaScript?
I would love to.
Oh, okay. I'll
But
take
no,
a seat.
headphones.
You're welcome. Yeah, we got spots. Okay. That was really weird. Okay, so I want us to talk just really briefly about synchronous versus asynchronous. Okay, can anybody define synchronous for me? Henry?
Synchronism is not everything's happening at the same time.
Yeah, everything is happening in order, at least. Yeah. Although the breakdown of the word is correct, because syn means together and chronos is time, right? But if you throw a in front of a word means what? Not, right? So asynchronous is not together in time, but for this one it actually means they actually can happen at the same time instead of one thing laid after another. So the best comparison of this would be, I don't know if this is the best comparison, but think about going to the deli and ordering a bagel and cream cheese toasted, right? So you made this, and then the person behind you orders just a plain bagel, right? So if everything happened synchronously, the person would go, they would make my bagel, and then they would go and make the next person's bagel. But our world is pretty asynchronous in the sense that if that person just ordered a plain bagel while mine's toasting, that guy is probably just going to serve that other person a bagel, and then so they'll be done, and then I'll still be waiting because my event took longer, right? So you might hear that JavaScript is a single-threaded programming language, which it is, meaning that only one thing can be happening at a time. But when we run it in a node environment or a browser engine, we have the ability to create multiple threads. Okay? It's kind of a weird thing to think about. But what happens is when we hit a piece of asynchronous code, such as a set timeout or a set interval, do we remember those? It says, okay, this is asynchronous, and I don't want this to block the call stack. So I'm just going to kind of draw what I mean. So if we had a console, actually I'll just draw it on the board. That's fine. Okay, so if I had a console log and I said hello, and then I had a set timeout, right? And this takes in some kind of thing that's going to print 1 second, and this is going to happen in 1 second. And then the next line is going to say, whoops. Can we all see this, by the way? In the back, yeah. The next, and this one prints goodbye. Abide, it doesn't matter. The name of it prints. Okay. So this you can think of as evaluating from top to bottom, right? This is you can kind of think of it as a call stack. It's going to happen in order from the top down to the bottom, right? But we know something about set timeout. And what is it that we know that set timeout? What's special about set timeout? Can anyone tell me what set timeout does? Kong?
I think it delay to showing the 1 second.
Yeah, right? It actually is going to wait 1,000 milliseconds in order to fire this callback function. Okay, right? I think we talked about set timeout and set interval before. So set timeout is going to take one whole second, right? So if we thought about this running from top to bottom, it would print out hello. It would wait a second, print out 1 second, and then immediately after print out goodbye, right? Does that feel like what we would expect with what we know? Do we think that's what will happen?
No.
Okay, so what's going to happen?
Well, it's going to read it from top to bottom. It's going to make a note that in 1 second I'm going to do this. So that's up. It's going to run the rest of the code.
Cool. So what Jay says is it's going to read from top to bottom, but when it hits an asynchronous function, something that is asynchronous, it's going to move it over to a different thread to be resolved by something else like Node or the browser, Web API, it's called, Browser API. And it's going to continue to run. And once all the other stuff is run, and once this one gets settled over here in the Browser API, it will actually get moved into something called a callback queue. Don't get too worried about that. And then it's going to get moved over, and then it's going to evaluate after that. So it's actually, we're going to learn more about this later. This concept in itself is called the event loop. Someday you'll be asked this in an interview. Okay, at this point you won't be able to nail that answer, but you should start to have some awareness of it. And it'll sound like a really cool video to watch about it, specifically that later. Okay, so let's see this actually run. For now, I'll just run this in Node, just so we can see. So I'm going to run node.index.js. And we see hello, goodbye, and then 1 second after a second. So the code is no longer it appears to no longer be going specifically in the order. Pretty interesting. I think so. So what does this look like? In a visual drawing for it, you have this is your call stack. This is reading the code from top to bottom. When you hit an asynchronous function, it goes to here. So async to here. This is like this is either Node or it's called the browser. You can think of it as browser API, or you can just think of it as browser if you don't totally know what that means. When this is finished, this gets moved to a different thing that looks kind of like an array called callback queue. Then this will get moved back onto the call stack. See that loop? That's called the event. Right, so that's how this is going to happen. It's going to hit asynchronous code. It's going to get moved over here. As soon as it's resolved, it will get moved into this other queue, like a line, waiting to get to go. Once it's got a space to go, it will then go. And so we use asynchronous code to not block the call stack. Meaning, if we weren't able to do that, we'd have to wait. So if I put a set timeout to 1,000,000 or something, like no code would be able to run. We'd just be waiting, right? So that's a little bit about asynchronous. So today we're going to learn a lot about events. So an event in JavaScript is considered asynchronous, right? Because we're going to say, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I want you to just sit and watch and wait. Okay, so let's make some async code list. So async list, the things we know: set timeout, set interval. But then we also have events. And we have lots of different events. What's one event we already know about? Somebody throw their hand, I'll just call Will. Okay, that is the event. Yeah, tell me the event itself. Sin. Click. Yeah, I like that. All right. What else? Karen. Change. Okay, we haven't learned that one, but she knows it. I like it. Change. What else? Isaiah.
Content loaded.
DOM content loaded. Okay, Karen. Not an event. I like what you're thinking. Submit. Good. Okay, so there's a lot. I think Henry even posted a link to it on NDN. When I say a lot, how many do I mean? I mean a lot, right? Here's a page of events. Right? These are just mouse events, right? There's like categories. If we're thinking about mouse events, we have aux click. I don't know, I've never used that. I'm sure it's great. We've got click, context menu, double one click, or device, yeah, click twice, mouse down, mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse move, mouse over, mouse out, mouse up, wheel, select, right? These are all just mouse events. Then we've got drag and drop events, like drag, 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 enter. We've got media events, progress events, storage events, update events, value change events, uncategorized events, and there were some even up here that I skipped earlier, right? Network events, online, offline, resource events, error, abort, unload, load, right? There's tons of events. And these are all waiting for certain things. Form, right? Submit, reset. Keyboard events are something we might see a lot. Key down, key press, key up, right? It's like in a game when you're controlling it. It's listening and it's waiting for that event to happen. And so I have to spit out my gum. But when an event happens, it's going to fire, it's going to do something. Right? That gum, I swear that gum turned stale within like 15 minutes. It's like Trident, but it's really old. Anyway, right, so as soon as that event happens, we want to do something with that information. All right, so, and that is like the whole idea of the events today. And today it's all about just getting kind of used to that idea and getting comfortable with them. So, when we want to interact with the potential DOM, what's the first thing we need to do in our JS file? Marvin? Yeah, right, we need to add an event listener to the document that specifically listens for DOM content loaded. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's document.add event listener. And I'm going to say when the DOM content has loaded, I want to fire this callback. And again, I'm just going to test my work to make sure it's working. So, hello, refresh, hello, great, it's working. Make this bigger. Okay, so let's experiment with this form. So a common thing you'll see, or like a pattern you get used to, is you'll have forms, right? And you want to, instead of gather all of the information at the very end, when they hit submit, you actually want to gather that information while they're filling out the form. This is like really normal, right? That way, like if they close their browser, sometimes have you ever opened it up and you already have like text still there, or like auto-save kind of things, right? So something we might do is we'll have like, we can create this, like, we'll say let this person, and we'll assign this to be an object with the following properties of name, pointing to an empty string, and email, pointing to an empty string. Right, because these are going to be the elements of the form. Because someday when somebody fills out a form, we're going to want to take the information and do something with it. So this is like kind of how we'll start with that. So there's a couple things we need to add event listeners to, right? We need to, I guess this would be a good time to quickly talk about something else first. Okay, I'm going to show something here. Okay, so we're going to pause on the form for a minute. I'm going to go to a UL. And we're going to fill it with LIs. I'll say guitar, piano, trumpet, bass. Yeah? Okay. So we're going to see something, whatever. So I want us to add an event listener on, let's give it this, we're going to pretend like I'm clicking on piano. So I'm going to say ID equals to piano. Usually you wouldn't give each LI a specific ID. Not necessarily. So we're going to say ID piano. And there's only one UL. So let's go ahead and add listeners on the piano and on the UL, okay? Just bear with me. It will make sense in a minute. So we're going to say, it's so hot in here. Thank you, Celine. Let piano equal document dot, how do I grab it? Query selector, right? In here, what do I write? Pound piano, Octothorpe, I like it. And let's also go ahead and grab the UL. And I'm just going to call it UL for now. Okay. I'm going to add an event listener on both of these things, just so we can see something. So let's say document, piano, dot add event listener. What should we listen for? Click? I don't know why that thing's popping up. So annoying. Click. And on the click, we're going to call debugger. That's it. I don't really want to do much with it. And I want to do the same thing again for the UL. And I spelled debugger wrong. Okay, so we're going to click on the event, or we're going to click on the element. This should be somewhat familiar. I know we're just learning events today, but really we're just learning a little bit more about events. We've actually already been introduced to them. So we're just going to click on it, and then it's going to hit the debugger, right? Agree, disagree? Totally lost? No? Okay, just quiet. I just added a UL and LS. Okay. So we're not doing anything with these events yet. We're just firing events. So I'm going to go here, refresh. Okay, so if I click on piano, what's going to happen?
It's gonna be. Wait, yeah.
It's going to hit the debugger. And what line will we be in? 11? What? Okay. Let's do it. I'm going to click on piano. And we're there on line 11, debugger. Seems pretty fair, right? Great. What happens if I hit continue? What? Yeah, but somebody needs to tell me why. Like, because we're only going to be in 14 if we fired off this event. Did we? Well, we would only stop on 14 if this callback is getting fired. Are we calling that?
We are actually.
Why?
Because piano is inside of the UL.
Because piano is inside of the UL. I like that. That's good instincts. Right? So then, right, Henry's completely right. We've hit our second debugger because piano is inside of UL, and UL also was listening for a click. Okay, now I'm going to add something to this that we haven't seen yet. This callback function actually takes in an argument. We just haven't been needing to use it, so we haven't. That argument is called an event, but it's so you usually see it as either written as E or written as event. E is short for event. It could be it's just a representation, but you should call it. You should either call it E or event. If you call it anything else in your code, it will be weird. Okay, and in here I'll also write event just to keep it clear. So as we remember, like in for each when we had our callback, it automatically passed each element into that callback, right? So just like that, when this happens, this automatically will get past the event. Let me show you what I mean. We'll refresh the page, and we'll click on piano. And we can look in our console at the event. This is the event. Let me get it bigger. It's a mouse event. It says where it happened on the screen. And that's pretty much it. It's got some other cool sounds you might need, like event.target. Piano. The event.target is what the click was on. Let me write that down, because that's going to be... I'm going to delete the loop, okay? So, event.target is what was the target. As in, maybe a click for this one, yeah? Now there's a second one that also sometimes comes in handy. It's event.current target. Also, still the LI right now. So, okay. Event.current target. And this is where the event is now. Okay. So it makes sense. We clicked on piano. The target is the piano, and the current target is the piano. But now if I hit continue, we are now in this UL add event listener. So what do we think is going to happen when I do event.target? Take a second with your partner to decide what event.target is and what event.current target is. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. Okay, who wants to share? Come on. Somebody I don't usually hear from. and that person will be David. Hey, tell me, what's the target? What's the current target? Cool. Okay, so David says the target hasn't changed because the original click still happened on piano because that was what the target was. What was the target? And he says the current target is now going to be the UL because that's where the event currently is. All right, let's check that. So we'll say event.target, piano, nice. Event.current target is the UL. Okay, so David, nice job, crushed it. Awesome. Yeah, give it up. And he spoke in class, which is a big win. All right, talk. Everybody should be totally talking. I love it. You have to be talking. You have to always be talking. Right? It doesn't hurt. No harm. You got it right. Right? And it would have been fine if you got it wrong. Okay. So this idea that the event continued to move upwards is called two different things. It's referred to as event bubbling. Also called event delegation. Okay, those two terms are synonymous, meaning they mean the exact same thing. It's this idea that the event is going to be traveling upwards. So where's the last place the event's going to hit? What is that header? What's this?
The head.
What's the head?
The top.
Which is? Huh?
HTML.
HTML, right? It's going to go all the way up. The event is going to continue to bubble all the way up. I can click on the smallest link, and it's going to go check out its parents. It's going to check out its parents. It's going to check out its parents. It's like I don't know what your families are like, right? But I'm Jewish, so I have like a gossipy family, right? And so like if one of the kids does something, right? The parents find out. The grandparents find out. The grandparents. It's like it just keeps the news keeps traveling up. He did what? You know, right? So the same thing is happening in JavaScript. It's written about a set of Jewish family. Right. But for whatever, right? That's what's going on. So let's check ourselves. Okay, so instead of having these, let's go ahead and say document.add event listener. Click. Takes an event. Yeah, I almost spelled it right, even though I was blocked. And I put in the debugger. Okay, so if I click on base, what's going to happen? Brutus. I'm going to hit the debugger, even though I'm clicking on base. So Brutus says if I click on anything, I'm going to hit the debugger. Do we agree? Because the whole thing is part of the document, right? Okay, cool. So I hit that. So what's the target? If I say e.target, what's it going to be? Somebody, Phil. LIs, specifically the base. So he says e.target, it's the LI. I think I can even sometimes say dot value, or maybe not for this. No, not for this. Oh, it has a value of 0. E.target, and if I say E.current target, Cassidy, what will it be? Don't know? Okay, anyone else want to take a guess? Deja? The UL? I don't know. Maybe. Henry? Well, we put it on the document, right? So it is actually the document. Actually, the window is the most out thing. Just for the record, you can say window. Right, the window is, I think, the most out. I think window has property of document on it. See? So window is the outermost of everything, just for the record. It goes like window, document, HTML, etc. Okay? Well, I think actually the document is the HTML. Anyway, that's event bubbling, that's event delegation. We feel okay on that? Okay. So great. So if we feel good on that, let's go back up to the idea of this form that we're creating. So where do my listeners need to be on? If I wanted to just listen as somebody fills out this form, how many listeners do I need? Isaiah? Yeah, but what about if I wanted to keep track while people were typing? Doug? How many? One on the form? Okay. Yeah? Okay, so you're saying two on each, one on each? Yeah? Submit. Okay. Interesting. So let's find out, yeah? Also, for the record, adding lots and lots of events can be expensive. Not financially, right? But time. It can slow it down. So if I had this huge list of LIs, like let's say I had a list of 1,000 or 5,000 instruments there, it would be so much better for me to have one event listener as the UL, because I'm aware of event delegation, than it is for me to have an event listener for every single LI. Right? If it's just a few things, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to make a difference. But we're talking like huge amounts. I don't want 5,000 listeners for my LIs when I could just have one on the UL. Okay? That's a common thing. You've probably seen a lot of ULs in life where you've clicked on something and a new page has opened up. If you haven't, you got to get online. Okay, so if we've got that, let's go ahead and put one on the form. So let's say, okay, we're going to say let form, and we're going to go grab it. How do I grab it? Query selector form, sure. I'm just going to put the tag name in it for now. And I can add a listener form. And if I wanted to capture people as they're typing, what would be a good thing for me to listen to? Kelvin? Value form? Yeah, maybe. So I'll give you a hint. It's on here. Change. Right? I like it. We guessed all of them. Nobody guessed DOM content loaded. Right? So if we do, so let's add event listener. Change. I'm going to change it. And we'll say E for our event. And I'm going to throw in a debugger to make sure that it is working. So I'm going to save this. We'll go back to our page. And we'll start to type. I write C. O-R-E-Y. It's not doing. It didn't do it. It just randomly went this time. Interesting. E dot. Let's see. I didn't hit enter. For some reason it should have fired with just one. Oh, you know what? It's staying, like, while it's focused, it's not making the change for some reason. So, like, if I continue and type in an O, it won't change unless I leave this screen. But that's an okay behavior. Yeah.
Can you change it to listen for like
Key down.
yeah.
I could. Yeah, I think I could. But generally with forms, you actually do listen for change. It's not behaving precisely the way I'm expecting it to at the moment. But when we get in like React and create forms that way, you'll want to do it with change. That's why I'm going to keep it with that. Key down and all that, that's like better for usually like playing games where you're like moving with arrows. So this, I think it's just trying to optimize. But anyway, so we'll say, we can see this. And here if I say, okay, e.target, oops. We can see it's this whole input, and I can say dot value because it's inside of that value. It's showing its co. And I also have e dot target dot id is name. So this is going to get a little weird for a second. Okay. So with those two things, I have the ability to update my object, right? So I could do like a condition, right, where one fires the other, or I could have two separate ones where they each update their own. But I also know that I have the ID, which points whether or not it's a name or an email. And I also have the value of which one I'm at, right? So you're going to see kind of a different syntax here than what you're used to. And I'm going to say person at e.target.id. And I'm going to assign that to e.target.value. Right? Does that make sense? It's actually not so far from what we're used to, right? e.target.id is going to give us back the ID of the target we're on. So that's either going to be name or email, depending on which form we're in. It's going to key into our person object, and it's going to reassign the value to whatever is currently in the e.target.value. So with that, I can console.log, or I'll just do it underneath. I'll log our person. Okay, so we'll refresh. Missing.
You deleted it. Well, at the end of that curly braces, you deleted it. For the fallback.
This?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I write core co. Here, now if I click out for a second, you'll see it's being updated. Email. Well, I'll go back and I'll add some more here. And it's constantly keeping an update of what it currently is, and we're updating the specific object in our JavaScript. Does that make sense? Okay, so then we have one more thing to listen for, which is what? When we're with a form, what is that? Submit. I submit to the JavaScript, right? Uncle. Okay, so let's add a listener for that. So we're going to say form.add event listener, and we're going to listen for submit. It's taking in an E. and we're going to throw in a debug. Okay, and let's give it a shot. So we're going to go in here. Format. Somehow it made the word format. Okay. So we'll say Corey, tab Ladovsky. Oh, actually, this is email at email. And submit is great because you can, the reason you want to use submit with a form is because I can click here, form, right? Or I can do what we often do on our computer and just hit enter, right? That bang was me hitting enter really hard, right? And so if you do that, it submits. So right now we'll look at our console and we'll see e.target. So let's learn about it. E.target is the form. Makes sense. We're currently on the form. E.current target is also going to be the form. So let's figure out more about it. So we got E. Our type is submit. Our target is a form. Got all of this information about it. Let's see if it says anything here. So that you see this word where it says bubbles, true. Cancel bubbling, false. Default prevented. I'm trying to find this function in here, but it might be too hard to find. Let's see if it's in the P. These are all of these things that you can call that belong. I'm looking for the word prevent default. I don't see it, but I know it's in here somewhere, but I'm not going to waste too much time looking for it. So right now, if I hit continue, what's going to happen? Who remembers from 15 minutes ago? Deja? Yeah, it's going to refresh, right? And you can see it refresh if you watch this spot up here. Refresh, and all the information's gone, and the events is just submitted. So that's behavior we didn't want. So if I don't want that to happen, I'm going to say e.prevent default, and I'm going to invoke it. If I do that, I can do other information with, let's make an H1 that just says the person's name and email. So how do I make an H1? Sorry? Yeah, I like that. Keep going. Perfect. Right, and I'm going to access things from my person right now. I'll say person name plus, and I'll have their person, I'll just do .email so we can see both notations. When you're programming them, stay consistent, right? It should be one or the other. I'm just doing it both so that you can each get a taste, right? Don't copy everything I do. And then let's just add this to the body. So how do I add this to a document's body? Become?
Document body.
Yeah.
Pattern children.
Append child.
Child. You. Which one?
H1. Okay, great. So let's see if this works. So we go in here. We're going to write Corey, email, at email, enter, and then it's on the screen. Pretty cool. And it didn't refresh, right? So now we can start putting all of our inputs in forms, because usually they are going in forms. You should be able to submit with enter or clicking the button. And the page should not refresh. So when we say event default, prevent default, that ends that from happening, stops that from happening. There's also a method to get something to stop from bubbling or delegating. And I believe it's called stop propagation. Is that right, Celine? Yeah. So what do I mean by that? So inside of piano here, let's go back to when we had our piano and our UL. And instead of having a debugger in here, I'm instead going to go event.stop propagation. I'm going to invoke that. And I'm going to go back to having the UL open, and as well as having the document. So if this doesn't work, the UL will hit the debugger, and then so will the document. Otherwise, I should be able to click on piano and just click on piano. So let's see. We'll refresh. I click on piano. Now debugger. I click on trumpet. We're going to hit our UL. And then if I hit continue through, we'll hit our document. But piano is now fine for me to just click on that because stop propagation means stop the event delegation, stop doing event bubbling. Okay? Prevent, not to be mixed up with prevent default, which stops the form from submitting. Okay? All right. That's most of what we're going to cover for the events. I do have a small challenge for you. It's in the GitHub lab. So I want you to add a div with the ID of coordinates, and using the document.addEventListener mouse move, I want you to update the text inside of that coordinates div so that it tells me the position of the mouse at all times. I will copy the question to the board. All right, so let's take, see if I can make it prettier. Well, we already have that. Oh, God damn it. Okay, so this is the challenge over the next 15 minutes, and then we'll work on the lab after we go over it. Okay? So don't cheat. You can work with each other.
How would you grab that? Where we select it? No. First ID. It's 36.
Yeah, the arrow on the screen. Yes. So wherever the arrow is on the screen, it's showing the coordinates of that arrow. That makes.
So is it numbers?
Yeah. Yeah. Go back to the. How do you get the coordinates? That's where it is. Oh.
Yeah, so.
So you should put the estimate on the document so that we can listen to it on our web analysis. Because if you just put it on the div's going to be so small. All right, let's go over. Clap your hands once you can hear my voice. Rock and roll. How do we do? Yay, nay, okay. All right, yeah, it's a little tricky, but it's not too bad. Let's go ahead and just create it from here. So we'll say we'll add a div with the ID chords. So let's go ahead and invent it. So we'll say let chords equal, what do I write? How do I create a new element? Yeah. Create element And I think it specifically said a div, right? So I'm using a div for this. All right. Should give it an ID. So I'm going to say, well, it should be chords, right? I don't know what coods are. Chords.id. And we'll say that it's equal to chords, I guess. And then it says to put using the document.add event listener mouse move. Okay. So, well, I should probably add, first I should add chords to the body. Yeah. So I'm just going to say, how do I add it to the body? Okay. Cool. All right. Then we'll follow what the next direction is, and it just says to document. So we'll say document.add event listener. Mouse move. I saw so many people put this on the div, even though the instruction says to do it on the document. That's okay. Like most of us did that. Event, I'm going to put in the E, and then it says it's going to update the text of the chords div with the X and Y. So let's put a debugger in to see what I have available to me. So we'll go here, we'll refresh, and I moved. And so because I moved, let's put on a debugger so we can look at the E. Interesting. Do we see anything there that looks like it might be helpful?
Client X, client Y.
Yeah, client X and client Y's, right? So E dot client X looks pretty good to me. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say chords dot inner text is equal to, and I'll say something like X points to E dot client X, Y points to E dot client Y. We'll save it, refresh it, and we can see it moving as the mouse moves. Not too bad, right? Pretty cool, right? Maybe this gets your mind spinning about like things you could someday make for games and keep track of positions, right? Maybe you have a Fruit Ninja where there's an object that gets rocketed in and you can see where the mouse moves if it swipes through that, right? Like, pretty feasible. It's getting there. I think it's tomorrow we're going to start building on that tic-tac-toe game we built together last time, but this time we'll add a new class to it that will show it. So instead of the terminal, it'll be on the browser. All right? So that's what to expect coming very soon, probably tomorrow. All right? Any other last questions on events? Great. I think Celine's already posted pairs, I'm pretty sure. So you're going to be working on your events lab today for the remainder of the day. Let's do it.